street lights lit this town like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We gonna light it up now. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We gonna light it up now.
There I am. Welcome in sorry. Welcome in everybody. I'm just trying to get my let me turn it up. Okay. I had to turn up my microphone. My microphone is actually down. So welcome in everybody. This is Titanium Built True Crime. My name is Tanya. Nice to see everybody on this Sunday afternoon, or I guess early evening in some places, afternoon in some places, and it's probably even at night some places, so whatever. But welcome in everybody. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn off my camera really quick. I'm going to do something behind me because I always forget to turn this little light on. Oh, I guess I left it on all night because it's dead. Okay, never mind. It was a little light that goes for this tree, so sorry. You can see my candles though if I lean over. You guys can actually see my candles. Well, welcome in, everybody. Sorry, I feel like I'm a mess today. I was trying to scurry and get on. So I'm sorry that I'm a few minutes late, but we are going to talk about the Idaho 4 case. I'm going to do an open panel. So let me pin this to the top. But don't forget to hit the like button also. I'm just repinning a different message. So I'm gonna link the open panel link at the top of the chat. That way, if anybody wants to come up, I think it's actually at the bottom of your chat now. I think they put it at the bottom. Either way, if you want to come up, you're free to do so. If you have a difference of an opinion than me, even better, because I get a lot of people in my comment sections that do have a difference of an opinion than myself, and I would love to talk to those people, and I love to talk to you guys, the people, that probably even think the same way as I do. But it's just, I thought it'd be interesting if, someone wanted to come up that had a difference of an opinion. So welcome in everybody. Hey, Crystal. Hey, Gwen. Hey, Catherine. How you been doing? I've been thinking of you. Hey, Ozzy. Hey, Chris Diamond. Hey, Jen. Hey, Kat. Hey, Marcy. Welcome in, everyone. Hey, Chris. Welcome in. Look at that, 38 months. Oh my gosh, time's well spent with good people. I've been thinking of you the last few days. I feel like I hadn't seen you in chat or something, and I was gonna like email you. I don't think I have your email. I'm one of those people. I will ask you if you're okay. Like I will come and check on you and make sure that everything's okay, because that's just, I don't know. I'm that creator. Call me weird. I don't care, but I do. I notice when people are, when you guys aren't in chat or something. Catherine's probably like, man, I was just having fun with my family. I think you said you were with your daughter. Your daughter, it's your oldest daughter's birthday? Really? Well, she celebrates a birthday with the two of the most, I think, probably other than my dad, the other two people other than Vincent that mean the world to me. And that would be my mother. My mother's birthday would have been today. She would have been 73 years old. So happy birthday, Mom. I know she's celebrating the hell out up there. So she's doing good. I know she is. And then also it's Rocky's birthday, my cat. If you saw on my second page, I put like a short up of him, but that's my Rocky. It's his birthday today. He's 18 years old. So he's pretty much, I've had him almost half my life. So we're celebrating birthdays all over the place over here. It is hot here too. It's actually not too bad today. I'll say that I went to the pool before I came live and I was like, I don't want to get up. And usually I'm really hot after like 10 minutes and I'm ready to go. Hey, Susan. Welcome in, everyone. Been busy. Yeah. One leaving for college. Oh, and we have our football. It's about to start. I know. My nephew's playing football this year. I'm so excited. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And yeah, Rocky's having the time of his life today. It's like whatever he wants. He actually came up and cuddled with me on the bed today. I'm sorry. I know TMI, but I don't ever get that from him. He gives all that to Vincent. I should have put I was going to ask Vincent if I could make another video of just him and the cat because they're so stinking cute together. But I wanted to go over this video that came out about the Idaho 4. It has, what's his name? I think about it. Okay, Kevin Flixter. So the Idaho Statesman, he was one of the people that worked at the Idaho Statesman, probably the person that covered the Idaho 4 case the most. Very ethical, I think anyway, journalist. He's kind of like a Brian Enton in a way, but this video that we're going to watch today is going to feature him, and he's an investigative reporter. And he's going to be joining Joshua Ritter. And this is like a series that they're going to be doing. And they're going to look back at, the 2022 murders of the college students at the Idaho, University of Idaho. They talk about like the initial media and the initial coverage. They're going to go over like the arrest, the gag order, legal proceedings, plea deals, the lingering questions that are still out there. And they'll probably answer some chat questions as well. So let me pull this up for us. I feel like we haven't just like got on here and watched a show in a while, like watched a video. Like we watch videos, but I mean like, just like pull right on up. I did have some other stuff that I was going to show you, but I don't think it's important. Like it was just like stuff that I found, like we probably had went over it before, but it was just kind of, funny. So maybe we'll go over that. Let me see, actually, what do I have down here? I'm going to check really quick for Idaho 4 because I have a lot of tabs that I keep open. These are all for the other case we're covering, the 16 kids in Vinton County. And this is 2. I must have taken them off. Stupid computer. Okay, well, my print center isn't working neither. What is going on? Oh, you have one job. You have one job to do, printer, and that's to print. Okay, I'm sorry. I talk too much. But like I said, this is just it's just an investigative report. If you see it right there like this, the Idaho case, that would be the next one we'll probably cover. That has Joseph Scott Morgan in it. Gotta hit the like. And I'm gonna go ahead and I don't know why it says jump ahead, but I'm gonna go ahead and play it from here.
In the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, in the quiet town of Moscow, Idaho, 4 University of Idaho students, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Zaina Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, returned home from what seemed like an ordinary Saturday night. By morning, all 4 were dead. brutally murdered inside their off-campus home in a case that would shock the nation. For weeks, there were no suspects, no arrests, just fears, rumors, and a growing media frenzy. The hunt for the killer led investigators through digital breadcrumbs, surveillance footage, and what would become a controversial piece of DNA evidence. Until nearly 7 weeks later, a 28-year-old criminology PhD student named Brian Koberger was arrested, charged with the murders of all 4 students.
Hey, PKC.
Welcome to Courtroom Confidential, Idaho 4, After the Plea. I'm your host, Joshua Ritter. I'm a former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney. This special series looks back at the 2022 deaths of 4 University of Idaho students, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, and the case against convicted murderer Brian Koberger 1 year after the plea deal that brought the trial to an end, but left so many questions lingering. We're starting with Kevin Fixler, investigative reporter for the Idaho Statesman, who covered this case from the earliest days in Moscow through Koberger's guilty plea, sentencing, and the aftermath. Kevin helps us understand what it was like covering a case under intense national scrutiny. Let's take a listen. So, Kevin, I want to start really from the beginning for you. Take us back to, first of all, what your assignment was at the time, kind of the work that you were involved in, and then the moment you get this phone call, I'm imagining, about a horrific murder taking place in Moscow, Idaho.
I was actually in Denver, Colorado, where I'm from. I was visiting friends and family, and I remember that I was scheduled to work a breaking shift the next day. I was already scheduled to do so, and I knew immediately this was not going to be your typical incident. We knew very little about it. Our breaking news reporter on a Sunday when this happened was scrambling to get everything she could, but I was coming aboard Monday, and my editor called me and said, I'm going to need you to jump right on this. Police are not giving us much information. We don't know. They listed it as homicides, but that can be a term, as you know, that can be applied to a lot of different types of incidents. In fact, it was multiple days before we learned that, it was violent in nature and also that it had been a stabbing. So, yeah, I remember it very vividly, more than 3.5 years ago now. And I did everything I could, just jumping right into it. I'm not historically, in my experience as a journalist, even a crime reporter. So this was just jump right in, give it your all, make phone calls, and let's try and get some information out into the world.
Well,
why do you think that was?
He did a great job. I thought he was an investigator. I would have thought that he was for sure an investigative journalist into true crime, because he really did a good job.
Why, what did your editor know, or what was it about this that you knew somehow this was going to be different?
I know in other parts of our country in particular, and certainly other parts of the world, a quadruple homicide maybe happens, unfortunately, a handful of times a year, maybe more. There in LA, it could happen more than one in a month. But my editor, who had been with the paper and continues to be for decades, could not even recall historically if there had ever been a quadruple homicide in Idaho state history. And to the best of our research, we never found one, thankfully. Very disappointingly, sadly, there have been a couple since, but this was just so dramatic.
Sorry to cut him off. I won't do that again. But I wonder if Brian Koberger knew that. Wonder if, you know what I mean? If he knew that there's never been a quadruple homicide in Idaho before. It makes him stand out.
Dramatic, such a significant incident. It's at the flagship university. We're down here in Boise, which a lot of people probably don't know the geography of Idaho, but it's about 6 hours south of Moscow. So we are the statewide newspaper. We're increasingly more regional around the capital area and those communities, those counties, but we don't always have the resources to go to kind of those far expanses, and to get so far north as you're encroaching upon the Canadian border almost, to go up to Moscow, Idaho, and to commit those resources, it unfortunately has to be a a very significant event, and this was certainly that.
Had you been to Moscow before?
I hadn't.
What was it? Tell us what it's like. I mean, we've heard people talk about it as a college town, but what was your impressions when you first got there?
It certainly is that. I should give some credit to my colleague, Angela Palermo. She had actually graduated from the University of Idaho in 2022 and was with our paper for about 6 months. And we made the strategic decision to send her up there rather than myself in the immediate days, because she had a familiarity with the place, of course, having gone there and had been up there for 4 years. So we sent her up there, and I basically worked the phones from Boise. And I mean, it was an all hands on deck situation for our newsroom, increasingly so. But I got there for the first time about 3 weeks after the incident. Angela really led the charge and knew the ropes of the region. And so we took advantage of that. I was speaking with members of law enforcement, trying to get any piece of information, leveraging my investigative experience, filing for public records. And the city itself, when I got there, it was obviously very different than if you went there today. I hate to say it's a bustling city. It's not, but it's less rural than you might imagine. And it's a really beautiful place. They refer to it as the Palouse. It's these rolling farm hills that have been created geographically
Beautiful.
by melting glaciers. And I mean, it's just so picturesque, and it's a beautiful place, beautiful people. And it is a college town. It's a place you would want to go to school or send your children. And it's a lovely place. And to show up in kind of its worst moments, it was, I remember being very, very cold. It gets quite cold up north. And because of the latitude, it also, the nights come upon you very quickly. There's only, I think I remember there being 4 or 5 hours of light during those days. And then it was bitter cold. And it was just, it's hard to describe fear. And you certainly sensed it in that community. And whereas there would be people on the weekends who would be going out, students and nightlife, and there's a main downtown road down there and bars and restaurants and all of that. I mean, people just were not going out. And those people you saw were in pairs because they were very concerned about safety. You had Idaho State Police patrolling the campus, a place where people don't lock their doors, whether that's their cars or their residences. I certainly think that's changed now, but you saw people with their shutters down. It just was not welcoming. And whether that was because I'm a member of the media or just certainly they were just not used to this influx of people, and we were all there for the same purpose. It was a scary time, truly. I wouldn't say that I feared for myself per se, but I certainly recognized that this was not the place representing itself based on its typical identity, and it was a scary time to be up there.
You said when you first got the call, you weren't even sure what it was. You knew it was being described as homicides, but you weren't even sure what that really meant. When was it that you first realized this was a quadruple murder involving a stabbing and involving a suspect still at large?
Well, we of course knew there was at least one suspect still at large because they didn't have anybody in custody, and police were not releasing very much information at all. I believe, I'm trying to jog my memory, but I think it was 3 days in before they issued a press release identifying an edged weapon had been used in the deaths of these 4 students.
I think it was the 16th that they did their first press conference.
They had identified who they were and what their majors were and the communities from which they were from. But I remember being on the phone with now Chief Anthony Dollinger for the Moscow Police Department. At the time, he was a captain and he was functioning as the public information officer for media.
So I was right. Because I knew it was. The first press conference regarding the Idaho 4 murders was held by the Moscow Police Department and the Idaho State Police on Wednesday, November 6, 2022.
And I remember repeatedly getting him on the phone over the course of days. And the thing that has always stuck with me, when I asked him, I said, you've used the term homicide, but I recall the football coach at the time for the University of Idaho Vandals had done a press conference. It was a standard time frame for the middle of the season, and he did this press conference and he referenced the word murder. And we were very careful not to use it because we weren't certain if he was able to distinguish the two. And we were really trying to ask law enforcement, and they still wouldn't commit to it. But the thing I'll never forget, speaking with Chief Dollinger, again, then as a captain, was he told me we certainly have a crime here, because we were trying to understand if this was a drug incident, because that was sort of the rumor that was going around, and certainly a drug fatality could be a homicide. But that was when I think I personally knew. And I remember that being a significant headline and kind of a bit of a scoop. But it wasn't for even maybe a day or two after that they had identified that these 4 students had been killed with an edged weapon.
Hey, Betsy.
Talk to us about those
I said the
first
same
few
thing.
days and weeks, because one, I'm interested in the law enforcement did receive a lot of criticism because they were not very forthcoming on information. And it did seem as though people were not getting the answers they were hoping for. And also, you mentioned this already, small community, and the media, it seems like from around the country, has descended upon them. How were they reacting to that as you're out trying to gather information?
Again, a community not used to being, I hate to say in the spotlight. I mean, it's under the microscope. It was so intense for that small community, and any passerby just trying to go to class was being bothered by members of the media trying to get any sort of student perspective. Did you know the victims? Do you know that part of town?
We saw it, right? Brian Enton was like standing outside of like Sigma Chi, which at the time I didn't really see I guess a problem with it, I guess, you know what I mean? But now that I look back on it, I'm kind of like, those poor kids, really, they were just trying to go to class, and they were told not to talk to anybody. Right? They're like under a gag order. They're like, don't be talking to anybody about anything. Well, even before the gag order, they were told not to talk really to anybody. And then you've got Brian Enton, just walking, right when they're walking out the door of Sigma Chi, he's like right there, which I love Brian Enton. I'm glad that he does what he does. But then you had Nancy Grace there, and she got the interview with the people in the apartments that Brian lived in, but they wouldn't open the door all the way. So she's like this. There's like a gap like this. Who else was that? I'm trying to think of doing interviews out there. I'm sure there was just regular YouTubers out there. I don't know. I didn't hear of anybody, but I'm sure that there were just regular old YouTubers out there just trying to get the scoop. We all wanted to know what happened. The whole nation, not even nation, the whole world was mesmerized on this case. Now, before I get back to this video, there is another video I want to show you guys. It's it's Chris Whitcomb's new video that he did with this other lady. I can't remember her name. But it's like an hour and 20 minutes. And the comment section on that video is wild. Everybody's like, Brian didn't do it. Brian didn't do it. I mean, it's wild. It's wild.
It upended that community. And I just remember it was difficult to get any information at that time. One kind of interesting anecdote was we had gotten a tip. We didn't know what the veracity of it was, but we'd been told that law enforcement had been moving around the community and speaking to different businesses and asking about a particular kind of knife. And so I took that and I sent that to Angela, who was our boots on the ground, and she went and asked the local sporting goods.
Oh, you want to see? Oh, was Betty there? Oh, yeah. She was with Olivia. She was trying to be on her best behavior, but she wasn't. She flipped off a guy that lives there, that lives in the community. She was yelling at him, screaming at him. He was yelling back. I'm pretty sure it's the same guy that went after JLR. I need to do two side-by-side videos of that, actually. I'm going to look that up right now as you were just reminded me. But yeah, she was there. She did the interview with the Gonzalez's when Olivia did it. She was with her. And she really did a good job on that interview. She was on her best freaking behavior. I mean, the pink hat, that could have she probably could have dressed a little better for the, because it's an interview. But other than that, she was on her best behavior. And that's all I care about, right? She was on her best behavior. Other than she was parked in front of the house doing videos and stuff. She was, because that's why she got yelled at by the guy. I showed that video before on this channel.
Stores, the local hardware store, whether or not law enforcement had been their store, and a manager at one of the hardware stores had explained, yes, they asked about the specific type of knife, a K-bar brand. And he said, we don't sell that here, but he had some familiarity with it being a popular military knife and also for hunting and so forth. And so we broke that news ahead of the first press conference. That today, if you speak with former police chief James Fry, he'll tell you it was a bit of a blunder. It was an error, and they regret the mistake, that they were not more forthcoming. But some of the information, at least meeting with the public, I mean, he opened the press conference.
Hold on, I missed that. So how did they know it was a K-bar? Is he going to say that they knew it was a K-bar then? Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit. I'm sorry.
And a manager at one of the, whether or not law enforcement had been in their store, and a manager at one of the hardware stores had explained, yes, they asked about the specific type of knife, a K-bar brand. And he said, we don't sell that here, but he had some familiarity with it being a popular military knife and also for hunting and so forth. And so we broke that news ahead of the first press conference.
So ahead of the first press conference, okay, this Papa Roger to the front of the class. Obviously, people knew about the K-bar knife 3 days in, before the first press conference. The first press conference was the 16th. Murders happened on the 13th. So, Papa Roger, you're out for that one. Right there. You saw it in the Idaho Statesman.
That today, if you speak with former police chief James Fry, he'll tell you it was a bit of a blunder. It was an error, and they regret the mistake, that they were not more forthcoming. But some of the information, at least meeting with the public, I mean, he opened the press conference to say that. So they had subsequent press conferences, and then they were sort of doing these video releases with the details they felt they could release at those times. But it was a struggle. I mean, it was as competitive a media environment as I've ever been. And I've been in sports locker rooms where you're trying to muscle somebody out to speak to the star player after the game-winning shot and all those types of things. And I'm not trying to make light of it, but those are competitive experiences. But this was like nothing else. You had Brian Enton in front of the home every day, standing next to the trash can and filming constantly. And you're trying to not make a name for yourself, but
I'm sorry, that made me laugh so hard, because he really was standing out in front of that trash can. I didn't even think about that. That should have been part of his ensemble. Man, maybe we need to make some memes with him in the trash can now.
But you're certainly trying to hold your own and deliver information for your readership.
Was there the impression early on that the local law enforcement was in over their head, that they didn't seem to know exactly which way was up?
Yes, of course there was. This is a college campus with roughly 12 or 13,000 student population. It's a city with about 25,000 people, and it's a county of about 40,000. So 40,000 total. I should have done that backwards, but just explaining the size of this community. And if you've got, let's say it's a 25,000 population for the city, how many members of law enforcement are there? I think there maybe were 30 or 35. And I recall they were down officers at that time. They were having a difficult time filling positions. So they probably had 30, 31 officers. And to comb the community and if they were going to solve this, what quickly became a whodunit, that's what they call it. It was not, the boyfriend. It wasn't the ex-partner. It wasn't the obvious things that you look for in an incident like this. And so even if they were overwhelmed, or even if they would acknowledge that today, the thing is they immediately, and they pat themselves on the back a bit, but it worked, but they immediately called in Idaho State Police. They knew that this was in over their heads. And then it was not a day later, they had the FBI assisting. So what they didn't know how to do themselves, they quickly called in the resources, and largely this case was contingent upon DNA. And they knew that processing that house and doing it correctly and in a way that was legally defensible in court one day, if they ever got somebody, they knew they had to have the right people to make sure it was done properly. And ultimately that won the day.
I know one of the criticisms early on was that the community and the media was very concerned about whether or not there was an ongoing threat. If there's a person, a suspect that they still have not found, who is now responsible for 4 brutal murders. But there was a response from law enforcement that trying to ease the concerns of the community and maybe making a misstep by saying, no, there is no ongoing threat. Talk to us about that kind of exchange and how there was a bit of a backlash to that.
I think the media as advocates for the public and just trying to get information, we're pressing them, including at these press conferences that finally happened, to say, you've said that this was a targeted incident, but we have no information about that. And you're also saying that the general public is essentially safe. How can you say that if you don't have a suspect? You have no lead that's going to get you there that you've identified for the public. You are simply telling members of the college community to get home early, immediately after class, and move around in pairs if you must leave your home. They did take a ton of criticism. They did try to quell it by saying, well, we believe that this was the type of incident where someone was the specific focus, or perhaps the home itself, but without any sort of additional information that they could offer. I think they either misstepped or they over committed to the fact that the community was safe without really knowing whether or not that was true, and ultimately did have to walk some of that back.
I never have heard in a case before them say that the house could be the target, right? Has anyone else heard that before? Like before this case, I had never heard that before in another case. Like, them to come out and say, we don't know if it's the house or if it's the people in the house, which it actually does make sense in the long run. If there was no specific target, which I think a lot of us think there was, and we, kind of know there was. But I think that he was looking in those windows of that house and he was seeing all those people happy, partying, beautiful, lovely girls, and they're with their boys, friends, and, all the things. And I think he saw that, and that's what ended up pissing him off. That's just my own personal opinion.
Skip forward now in time a little bit, because weeks have gone by. They were under a lot of criticism and scrutiny as to appearing as though they had no real viable leads. I know there was a suspect vehicle they were asking for information on, but bring us to the moments just before an arrest is made. First of all, what was it like, the feel amongst the community? And then did you have any idea, or did this catch everyone off guard that in fact somebody was in custody?
It started to leak out of Pennsylvania. There was a television network or station, I guess it was a local station out of Philadelphia, that first broke the news that there was an arrest, and it was suggesting that it was tied to the murders in Moscow, Idaho, which was hard to believe. But this was a breaking news story, and why would an arrest be made, across the country? That it made little sense to people here in Idaho and Washington State. And obviously we quickly learned that he was a PhD student at Washington State University. So it was very surprising. It had not leaked beyond, a breaking news story, but a press conference had been scheduled by Police Chief James Fry and Prosecutor Bill Thompson in Moscow. So with that piece of information, we started to put it together, and that this was probably legitimate. If you talk to them today, they were fairly frustrated that they were not able to sort of break the news, I suppose, at the press conference.
Now you have a name. Tell us what you and your team do. I mean, there's got to be a flurry of activity to try to figure out who this person is and what their background is, and I imagine what connection he may have to the 4 victims.
Right. Of course, you're trying to figure out what connection there might be, and at that point, realizing that he lived in Pullman and was a student at WSU, then the connection is the proximity. And my editor at the time actually was from Pullman, and so knew that community very well. It's, roughly 10 miles apart. They could be considered sister college campuses to some extent. Many people from Pullman go to Moscow to have a nice dinner, or there are some different types of stores that people in Moscow might travel to Pullman to get to. The name dropped, and then we were racing to learn every detail. I mean, we're doing in the media everything that the regular person could do, which is that we're
There
Google
wasn't
searching.
much.
And we're trying to find every little detail about him. I think pretty quickly, a colleague of mine was able to stumble across a Reddit thread that identified this criminal survey that he had done or conducted while he was a student at DeSales University in Pennsylvania. So things like that, just, you're keyword searching and trying to sift, you're digging, you're researching, you're doing everything you can. And again, an all hands on deck situation among our newsroom of 15 reporters scrambling to try to get every little detail and put information, make phone calls to police and anybody who might have known him, connecting to social media and finding all that stuff out. And again, in a very competitive environment, and you weren't going to be first, but you were trying to be best.
Mm-hmm.
We have this shocking arrest in Pennsylvania.
Wow. Like he admits it too. Like everybody was there to try to be like the first one to get the story out, to get, I mean, I'm sure it was a fight for the top. I mean, Nancy Grace pulled out her white table, her folding white table, and she's like, come on, to her, assistant. And she's like, me, you, my blue jacket, and my neon green gloves, we're all going to Idaho. And that's what she did. She set it up right in front of the house. Cops didn't say a word. Cops didn't say a word to her for that. We watched it.
They go through the process of extraditing him now back to Idaho. And within days of that, the judge issues this sweeping gag order. Tell us about how that frustrated your efforts to cover the story.
Oh my gosh, we were struggling to get details from law enforcement, and they were saying they needed to keep it close to the vest for the purposes of the integrity of the investigation. And then they catch the person. Shockingly, as you said, in Pennsylvania, it was a total head scratcher, and we started to learn more. They get him back to Idaho. He makes his first appearance, and basically the spigot shuts off. And it was immediately after this press conference where Bill Thompson sort of famously said, get a hold of us, send in your tips, give us every piece of information you know about this person. We're asking you to contact us. And then this gag order drops at the request of both, I believe, the defense and the prosecution. And then you can't talk to them at all. Or I guess vice versa, they can't talk to you. So certainly frustrating. I know the national media was very upset about it. And I had never operated in a gag order environment to understand who could speak. There was confusion for the victims' families on whether or not they could still make public statements. Later on, the attorney for one of the families actually was restricted, included in the gag order, so he couldn't make statements on their behalf publicly. So it was, I guess, maybe a bit confusing. And then also you're still kind of like grasping at straws for information. And even to this day, I will tell you that some of the closest friends, the fraternity brothers and sorority sisters, the members of Greek life, you still can't even get them to talk to you today. So it really silenced many in the community, particularly those who knew the victims. Obviously, it didn't restrict people in Pennsylvania or really any member of the public from speaking. But I think just knowing that there was some sort of court order, if that was enough for them to understand that perhaps they should not be speaking to the media, then they didn't. And families kind of seized up as well.
Well, some of them.
Talk to us about the families. Were you able to, in these kind of initial couple of months, make contact with them, form any kind of relationship with them?
Yeah. Actually, again, with the understanding that our newsroom was kind of piecemeal putting this together across several different reporters, one of my colleagues in particular had been in touch with Ethan's mother. She, I think, was very adamant about wanting to ensure that people didn't believe that her son was involved in, some sort of drug case or something like that, which this was not. And so she was pretty vocal in the early days and then kind of went quiet. The Gonsalves family is.
Do you think that's why they were kind of quiet? Because they knew that we were all going to find out about the Adderall? Like, it was not a big deal to me. I mean, the kid did a little bit of Adderall. I mean, he's in college. Do I think he was going to be like a druggie or something? No, hell no, I don't. No, I don't. But do you think that could have been a reason why they like kind of pulled back? Because they found that out in the toxicology and they were just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. They just have always been really quiet, and I've always been kind of wondering. You know what I mean? I understand some people want to grieve in peace. I would want to.
everyone knows, was very vocal and continued to be so, whether that was to challenge the police over the case going cold, or being vocal about the home that was ultimately torn down and against their wishes before a trial could be held, or being upset and very public with the prosecution team. So they continue to be available. They, I think, really leveraged the platform a bit and spoke more to national media at that time. And I didn't have a specific relationship with them at the time. That has since changed over time. But the other families, the Laramies, which are the parents of Madison Mogen, her mother and stepmother, they really have not ever particularly spoken. They've done one documentary and really an appearance on the Today Show once. They've still not really spoken. And then with the Kernodles, Xana's sister, Jasmine, and her father, Jeff, have been kind of the people you would typically go to. Her mother, Kara Northington, also has done some media appearances, but that was a family that was difficult to break through with.
Now that he's in court and that entire process has begun, tell us about what you began to learn, or if you already knew about some of the key figures involved. We have prosecutor Bill Thompson, lead defense attorney Ann Taylor. Did you know much about these individuals before?
I didn't before. As I mentioned, I was not historically a crime reporter, let alone kind of thinking or considering the people many counties north and these figurehead positions they had. Bill Thompson, the elected prosecutor for that county, Latah County. And then actually, so Ann Taylor was the appointed chief public defender for Kootenai County, which is the county where Kaylee, Xana, and Maddie are from. She just happened to be in this position. She was the only first chair death penalty qualified public defender available, and so kind of came down a county to represent Coburger. She was the only one in the entire region who could kind of sit in that seat. But yeah, we began to learn details about them, including that Ann Taylor had individually represented one of the victims' family members, one of their parents in a prior case. Her name was always signed to documents for public defense in her county. And there was more than one family member of multiple victims who had been represented by that office. But
Kara Kernodle, though, was very adamant that she represented her and that she met with her. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, because I remember her also coming out and saying, this was back when she wasn't doing the greatest either. She just lost her child, but she was saying stuff. I've lost my train of thought. She was just going with a lot of things that weren't like true. Like she would even meet up with she met at with a couple creators on YouTube, and they would be like, we don't think, Brian did this. Like one of the persons said that. And then she'd be kind of going with it. I don't know. It was just it was a very weird time. Very weird time.
But this raised real concerns about potential conflicts. And there was a closed door hearing pretty early in to determine whether or not she was eligible to even represent Coburger. They determined that she could, so long as Coburger signed off on it, which he did.
Well, who else is going to freaking be there? She's the only death penalty qualified attorney in the upper, Idaho state or Idaho state. So everyone else would have to travel. I think it was a long time too, 6 hours to get there. No one. And
those were in court records that came out later on at the behest of the attorney for the Gonzalez family.
Brian Coburger is indicted by the grand jury on 4 counts of first-degree murder on May 17th of 2023. By the time he enters a guilty plea, it's July of 2025. That's a long time for court proceedings. Tell us, I know that you attended most of, if not all of those. Tell us as best you can how to summarize that journey. Was it tense? Was it combative? Did you feel like at any point, one side or the other was gaining an edge in the proceedings?
I think the best way to describe what was happening was hurry up and wait. And I was making many trips from Boise to Moscow. and spending multiple days reporting, but kind of building these trips around these court proceedings. We really tried to focus on the more momentous ones, where we thought there would be important testimony or key decisions that at that time Judge John Judge was going to have to make. There were a couple hearings where there were expert witnesses who were testifying. Something that really sticks out in my mind from that time was Steve and Christy Gonsalves were consistently attending. They were the only family members who were of any of the victims who were attending with any consistency, and they were almost at every one. But I can remember him being in the courtroom, him sitting next to his wife, and Christy trying to basically calm him down. And I just remember him just jostling with such just rage and energy, just bottled up, just ready to explode. And part of that was, I think, the impatience of this process. And if you've never gone through it yourself as a victim family member, which they had not, and most of us don't ever go through such a thing, thank God. But I think understanding the legal process, the court proceedings, it's designed to be slow. It's intended to make sure they get things correct. There's all these filings both directions. The prosecution will file something, the defense will object. The prosecution responds, and then you have hearings to discuss it in court, make oral arguments, and then the judge isn't even necessarily making decisions from the bench. And I know this was extremely frustrating for the Gonsalves family, if not others. So the other thing that I would share is the experience was, it's not that you were necessarily sitting right on top of Brian Koberger in the defense table, but Latah County is small. And I look back to that and think, how could they have ever had this type of trial had that happen with such national and international interest and all of the reporters who were going to come from at least across the country? I just can't even imagine. I mean, it was probably, there was enough room for maybe a few dozen people in the entirety of the courtroom. Wow. And you're literally sitting at the backs of Bill Thompson, or on the other side, you could almost reach out and touch Koberger. It was that kind of small courtroom. So the fact that it moved, ultimately, John Judge made that decision to move it to Boise and then not himself continue with the trial, that brought it down here to the capital city, much larger courtroom, and designed to handle it with security and back doors and different things like that. But that was really the environment of Latah County before it moved down to Boise, and they brought Koberger down here to Ada County.
Tell us about that decision, because that was a monumental one that really did seem to kind of change the landscape and speed of the case. And it's something that you don't see all that often. And to move it so far, too. I mean, like you said, 6 hours away. What was the response from the family, from the community? Generally favorable or not?
The families didn't want it to move. Their interest was not necessarily that he got a quote unquote fair trial. They believed that could happen, as did the prosecution argue that could happen in Latah County. They felt they could seat a jury and hash this thing out. But the judge ultimately made that call. I never will forget John Judge saying that it was one of the hardest decisions of his legal career. And not only did he make the call to move the thing, and he doesn't get to decide where it goes necessarily. The Idaho Supreme Court then steps in to do that. But it was clear to him, obviously, but not to anybody else when he was making that statement in open court, that he was making a call on whether or not he was going to sit with this thing for another 2 years. Because typically, if you're the judge who moves it, you do move with the case. That happened with the Vallow Daybell and the Chad Daybell case. So he opted not to move with it. John Judge, although he looked fairly youthful, was actually fairly long in the tooth, including in his career as a judge and in the legal field. And it was not long thereafter that he retired. So the families were very upset because it was extremely inconvenient for them.
He's like, I'm out of here. Koberger done did me in.
They will tell you that this process, the judicial criminal justice process, does not necessarily work for victims and victims' families. It's designed around a defendant. That's often their perspective. And suddenly they're not driving an hour and a half to get to a court proceeding. They're having to take a flight or drive 6 hours south and make, for trial accommodations, they're having to plan and pay for a rental property. And they're doing GoFundMes in order to help afford these types of things because they're not independently wealthy. So I think they were very upset by it, but you are correct that once Judge Stephen Hippler gets involved down here in Ada County, took it upon himself essentially to take this case and bring it home. And I think many would point to the fact that a much different tenor in how he handled the case and kind of spirited it to where it ended up.
Talk to us about the death penalty, because that was the lion's share of what the litigation was about from the defense perspective, was trying to get that removed from consideration by the prosecution. And even the state of Idaho changed their laws to some extent to accommodate this, if this ever became a reality that he would receive the death penalty. Tell us about how that played a role in all of this.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of the filings were really built around those arguments and whether or not the death penalty needed to be kicked as a result of some prosecutorial, I hate to say misconduct, but some issue that the defense was raising concerns about. And then we had all the legal eagles out there about the motions in limine and all the arguments about the things you could say in court or couldn't say in court, how you could describe him. And a lot of that was built around trying to dump the death penalty. And Ann Taylor and her public defense team worked very hard to get rid of it, never succeeded. And so that was the game plan. If this went to trial, it was a capital murder case. And it ended up being a huge factor in that a plea arrangement could even be made. That was essentially the one thing that we learned, obviously, later on, that the state was willing to lose in order to try to make a deal. And I'm not sure they knew even then whether or not Kohberger would accept the deal and accept life in prison. I mean, it still was hard.
I think that they were freaking shocked. And that's why they never said, you have to come out and say the why, the when, the how, the who, and all the things, right? I think they went too quick. They went in too fast with that freaking plea deal, because the Gonzalez even said they talked to them on like a Thursday, and then by Sunday or something, it was out. Like he took a deal. Like it was just within like a couple of days, and they had just mentioned it, but they didn't even say that was even like a thing they were going to do. It was kind of like skirted by, you know what I mean? Like just kind of thrown in there a little bit. So if I was Brian, and I was guilty, I would have taken the plea deal. Just because you wouldn't be on lockdown 23 hours a day like you are with the death penalty. You get more freedom. You know, you get your commissary, you get your honey buns and your ramen, and you get to like socialize with people. Like you get to have a life inside of a prison of some sort. You know what I mean? A lot more of a life than these kids have. So I would have taken the plea deal too. I mean, if I was innocent, hell no, I wouldn't have. I would have got on that stand. I would have right away put first witness me. Put me up there first. Let's talk. Like that. I'd be ready to talk after that many years.
To fathom that he was willing to waive his appeal rights and accept no parole, no chance of it, just over whether or not they would drop the death penalty. Of course, if he were convicted at trial, you still have to have 12 jurors unanimously say that he deserves that sentence. And that's always a gamble at a jury trial. So I think they felt they gave up something important, but the defense was willing to accept it. Clearly, families, they were mixed on the issue. And I think their opinions have maybe hardened in the different directions. The Gonsalves family in particular was infuriated by the fact that the death penalty had been dropped. Other families, I think the Chapins, were satisfied with the fact that a plea deal was struck and that they didn't have to attend all the days of trial and put their own other two children, the triplets, through this, as well as sit there and watch people like the two surviving roommates get cross-examined on the stand about what they did or did not do the night of the murder. So
I'm wondering if Bill Thompson was afraid to go to trial because he was afraid that although they have the voir dire before, like trial, that's when they pick the jury, and that's when they do their questions, and they decide if they want them to be on the jury or not. I'm wondering if Bill Thompson, with him being like older, if he thought that there would be somebody that in there that he would end up picking that was would be a conspirator and think that Brian didn't do this and just say not guilty to be petty. Do you know what I mean? Not to be like petty, but in their brain, they can't comprehend that he could actually do this, So maybe, I don't know. I mean, that could be it.
The death penalty was a key issue and very polarizing in this case.
Towards the final stretch, it now seems like this is heading towards trial. People are preparing, even myself. I'm planning to fly up there, stay up there for an extended period of time. And before the real bombshell of a plea deal, there's this other shock with a Dateline episode and this information and this leak of all of this facts, evidence, however you want to characterize it, that we had never heard of before. Tell me what was the effect of it on that with people involved in this case, and just as a member of the media, what was your reaction to all of that?
If you were involved in this case, and even if you weren't, and you were just a member of the public who was fascinated by it all and was watching closely, you watched that Dateline episode. I spoke to Lieutenant Darren Gilbert.
I'm pretty sure I watched that on the plane on the way back from California. I know it was one of them, 2020 Dateline something. I was like, you get the internet now.
Person who was one of the lead detectives on the case with Idaho State Police. And this was well after the fact. Obviously, there was a gag order in place, but many months later, when I spoke to him, finally, he told me that they were all dissecting it too. They were all watching it, even to figure out where this information might be coming from. And as you pointed to, it had a significant impact on the case. And we weren't sure how that was going to go. There was actually a hearing already scheduled. Yeah. Judge Hippler brought everybody into the court, and they had scheduled a kind of an impromptu closed hearing right before it. And members of the media are all lined up to get into the courtroom, and you knew it just had to be what they were discussing, but it's a sealed hearing. We have no idea before the public hearing. And I will never forget, I had Mike Baker from the New York Times to my left, and I had Brian Enton with News Nation to my right. And we're all seated there and just waiting for, this hearing. I couldn't even tell you what the hearing was about at this point. But at the very tail end of that hearing, I recall that Judge Hippler started talking about, and as I discussed earlier, I would be open to appointing a special prosecutor for the investigation. And, unless you were sort of reading through the message he was putting out into the public, because he was not saying, based on the episode of Dateline NBC, he was inviting and encouraging the defense to basically file this request, and the prosecution was not objecting. I think they wanted to know who leaked this stuff too. And to be clear, some of the information that Dateline put out in the world was not accurate. Many things were, but there were some pieces that weren't inaccurate and have since been proven yet again they weren't accurate. So, but yes, that leak investigation is ongoing. And that was a story I reported earlier this year, that the Ada County Sheriff's Office is now digging into this thing beyond a special prosecutor who would have had subpoena power. So they are still looking for whomever that, or the multiple people who may have been involved in delivering that information and those records and documents to Dateline that they then aired on television just months before trial. And really, some would argue that contributed to this plea deal happening.
It's been over a year now. June 30th, 2025. Tell us about the moment you start to hear about the idea that a plea deal may have been struck. What was your reaction to that? What did you do next? What is the reaction that you start to hear from some of the family members? You touched on this a little bit before, but what was it like in those first few hours and days?
Yet again, we really had no inkling that this was coming. Again, a gag order is fully in place to remind people of what was going on at that time. We are working our way to trial. Ann Taylor and her team have done everything they can to limit what can be said at trial, and also have asked for an extension that has now been denied. And so, like you, I've heard your story a couple of times about hearing about the plea deal in kind of an interesting personal experience for me, I was back in Denver visiting family and friends when this next major landmark in this case takes place. And I started to get a tip that, there may be a plea deal about to be struck. And Brian Enton, as I've referenced a couple times, he ended up breaking the scoop. And,
he could be mad at Brian Enton a little bit. I feel like there's a little hostility there.
Knew if Brian reported
I think it's a good competition. Do you know what I mean? Like that, those two guys, like they're around the same age. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like their background's kind of similar. Brian has a lot more followers, but he works for a decent newspaper himself.
It was likely true, and we had nothing. Well, at the Statesman, I remember being a Monday, and we ended up scrambling yet again and having to. I remember again, I'm on vacation at this time, and I was calling my editor and saying, I think there's a plea deal about to be announced in the Koberger case, and my editor, you got to be kidding me, and I'm not available per se, but in those types of situations as a reporter, especially when you're committed to something like this, that I've committed so many days and hours and months and years to this thing, I jump to the ready and I start working with my coworker, Alex Brizzi, and we start making phone calls and dividing up sources and figuring out who we're going to get a hold of to confirm the information and double vet it and all those things. So we weren't first at the Statesman, but we were probably third. And we were able to independently verify it outside of Brian's own reporting. And, it's a shock of a thing. You're certainly preparing for trial. I've sat in court and observed Koberger, his team, the prosecution, the back and forth with Hippler, what sort of the machinations and the relationships that are taking hold there. And I was on the phone with in preparation with a colleague of mine in South Carolina to understand how he covered the Murdaugh trial and trying to understand how do you even do this capably? What does that look like during voir dire? And just the whole process. So, we're as shocked as anybody, but we don't have time to think about it. We got to move. And, again, sort of in an irony, I remember jumping on your show very quickly thereafter to talk about the plea deal that very day as my coworkers sort of tidied up the story and wrapped it up. And we had posted it, but trying to get reactions, including from families and, infuriated, as I said. I mean, they were just, although they were given some heads up by the prosecution that this was either coming or that a deal had been struck, they were blazing mad, many of them, and had not seen this coming.
That's the shocking part, is that it sounds like it. Well, you tell me, they were as much shocked as anybody. They were not entirely looped in as much as they would have hoped to have been.
I think depending on which family you speak to, and it's a diverse group of people, and there's, offshoots based on the complexities of families, but some knew, some maybe had a better idea, or the details that have been sort of sprinkled and said, hey, we might be working toward a plea deal, but the unlikelihood that might take hold. I think some took it more seriously than others, and ultimately not feeling they had a say, some of them anyway, not feeling they had a say in the requirements of this deal. And I mean, it is worth reminding viewers that
they didn't. I don't think any of the family members did. Because I think that I don't think that one family member there, even the Chapins, I think that if it was like they had their option of knowing the why and the how and the who and the, all things, we know the who and the how, but like knowing the why, like the motive and all of that. And if there was a target and all that stuff, I think that they would still want to know that. I would want to know that if I was a parent. I want help. I want to know that as the public. But I do think that that if they had the chance to sit down with Bill Thompson and write out, like if Bill Thompson sat down with the family members like he should have and not freaking called them, you freaking lazy ass. You should have sat down with them and the investigators, and they should have talked to them, and they should have said, we might do a plea deal. How do you feel about that? Everybody vote. It could be a little secret vote. And then after that, say, what do you guys want to know about this case? And we will try. That's all they can say they can do. And they could try to get him to spill it, and that could be part of his deal. Because I'm pretty sure Brian would have signed on the dotted lines if he had to tell the why. I think Bill Thompson got a little ahead of himself and was like, oh, you're going to take a plea deal? Okay, hurry and get him to sign the paper. Hurry and get him to sign his papers before he changes his mind. I think that's how it went.
Brian Koberger accepted that he may receive the maximums. At that time, it was not a guarantee. It depended on what the judge what he wanted to sentence Koberger to. So it was never a guarantee what the sentence would be outside of not receiving the death penalty. And ultimately, Judge Hippler did sentence Koberger to the maximums and restitution and all these things. But, that wasn't known at the time. And then another thing is that these families felt, some of them, that they were misled by the prosecution because even at that time, we didn't know the severity of the injuries to each victim. So even leading up to the sentencing hearing, they didn't have the full scope of the information to go after him or, share the trauma this had on them, understanding the multiple stab wounds or blunt force trauma injuries that each individual victim had received. And they weren't even given that information until after the sentencing hearing.
June 30th is when there's first reports that a plea deal may have been struck, and things start to move at breakneck speed for the legal system, at least after that. By July 2nd, he's entering a plea, pleading guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. And then by July 23rd, he's back in court for the sentencing hearing, which was really kind of the climax to all of this. Tell us about that day.
Right.
What was the atmosphere at the courthouse? What was it like listening to those statements? Was there moments of, catharsis and closure, you think, or not so much?
I think the best way to describe the sentencing hearing and sentencing hearing day is to compare it a bit to the change of plea hearing. The change of plea hearing, as you noted, was very hastily scheduled because it was announced or confirmed on the 30th of June. And then just a couple or a few days later, Koberger suddenly in court, still wearing, street clothes. And he's wearing this gold
ugly ass ties. Every tie Ann got for him. She was laughing at him when she was at the Macy's picking these ties out. Look at this tie. I don't know. I just think they're all ugly. Every tie he's ever had, I got a bunch of pictures of them. I can flash them on the screen if you want me to.
Old paisley tie and standing up and raising
it. It doesn't even go. I'm sorry. I'm going to laugh at him. Look at the arms. Did she get his shirt in the little boys department? Like, the hand, that's bad. And then the tie, oh my goodness. And then she couldn't even get him a belt. She couldn't even get the guy a belt. This is his last time. One of his last times going to be wearing street clothes for the rest of his life. Okay? And she gets him dressed up like this. And you did him dirty. You did your client dirty.
His hand and, going through it very methodically, but very robotically. And all 4 families, and again, kind of the subsidiary elements of those families are all in attendance. One of the surviving roommates attended, and even Koberger's parents were at that hearing. So you couldn't get all the national media out. You couldn't get all the true crime sleuths and the people who within that community want to make this hearing. And it was a little bit calmer, even though you had bomb sniffing dogs and heightened security just to get in. You still had to show up at, 4 or 5 in the morning to get in because although it's a larger courtroom, it's still, difficult real estate to get a hold of. So let's move forward to the sentencing hearing. And there was a 3-week build to this thing. And we know that there's going to be victim impact statements. And we know that this is the final moment. It is that climax. And for somebody who has not covered I'm going to call this a mega trial, a mega case. It was sort of new, but I got a taste for what it might be going to the plea hearing. It was magnified. It was 10 times. It was Fox News building a studio, and it was just so much more of a circus. And you had just to get in for the hearing, there were people lining up at 8 p.m. the night before, and then they sort of got scattered across the street. And, you and I were joking about our good friend Joel Waldman was staying out all night with members of the true crime community so they could make sure they got in, and racing across the street as soon as 4 a.m. Arrived and they could get in.
Yeah, there was this lady there. She was like sitting there waiting to she had her spot in line, and she wasn't even going to go into the courthouse. She was holding the spot for some news anchor so that the news anchor could be like all like cutesy and pretty, when she goes to be on the news. And I was like, dang, I'm like, where do you get that kind of help at, I mean, it was a bigger news station, so that's how you get it. But look how they're all set up. I got all the stuff. All I need is the little tent. I got everything else.
In the physical line, and it was sort of approved by the court system. And then even then, you're still waiting hours just to get in. I was in the overflow room about 100 yards away from the courtroom doors, but sitting in there with a large group of people, many of them who were hopeful to get into the hearing but did not make it. And we watched it live all together, and it was still just so traumatic to hear these different people, including one of the victims, one of the surviving roommates, deliver in person the dramatic impact that this had on her life and continues to do so. And then the other thing that I recall, and you can talk.
And I'm going to say it real quick. People that say stuff about Dylan and Bethany, y'all are going to go to hell for that shit. Y'all are. You're going to meet your maker one of these days, and they're going to go down the list of shit that you did here in this world, and they're going to say, you went after a victim of a crime after she cried like that? She couldn't even stand the frig up. Bill Thompson asked the judge, remember? Hey, Hippler, can we get her a chair? Can she sit down? I remember that.
Talk to any, longstanding legal mind. And the thing that impacted them so much was they had never, people who had been involved in the court system for years, decades, they had never seen anything like this, because
I guess they could take it off and use that as a weapon, huh? That's true. They could. Yeah.
There had been so many victims and so many people eligible to.
I never knew that.
To deliver words.
Thank you.
Some chose to do that to the court, directly to the judge. Some chose to deliver it to the members of the audience. Some people chose to deliver them directly to Kohberger and his attorneys. And it was so interesting to see how each family basically, if there was catharsis or if there was closure, and many would say there was not and never will be, but they did their absolute best with what they knew in terms of how to deliver one of these statements. But the other thing I remember was that they scheduled this for basically 2 days. They didn't know how long this would last. And I guess if you think about it, how long can you stand up and give somebody a piece of your mind? And it only went about a half day, but they were planning that this could extend based on the number of victims and the people who wanted to speak.
2 days.
This could last a day, day and a half. I will note the Chapin family chose not to attend. They instead got on a boat up on Priest Lake, where Ethan had long enjoyed recreation with his family, and they handled the day in a much different way than attending or watching or having any interest in what happened to the man responsible for their son's death.
Now, could you guys do that? I understand celebration of life, get on the boat at a time and, and remember Ethan, because that was his favorite place to be. But connecting his favorite place with the day that his killer gets sentenced, I don't know. I'd want to be there. I'd want to say something. And I would hope that I would be as savvy and cunning and smart as Olivia was with her statement. I mean, she broke the damn internet when she spoke.
Many people, even outside of the family, had mixed emotions about all of this. But a lot of people were upset, and they were upset about the death penalty. They were upset because they felt like somehow we were all denied answers, and this moment of making this monster answer for what he had done.
Mm-hmm. I was ready for that
But
trial.
another thing that was highlighted was even during this sentencing, he wasn't ever required to speak. He wasn't ever required to give any answers, to explain himself at all. What is your response to that? What did you make of that?
Yeah, if you talk to certain family members, there's this belief that they should have forced him into allocution. And even President Donald Trump weighed in on this issue on social media around that time, that the judge should demand this. And, the Gonzalez family was trying to push back against acceptance of the plea deal by Judge Hippler. And he noted two things. One, I really can't do that. It's not within my authority. And the other thing that I can't do within my authority is require in the state of Idaho that somebody allocute. And so I recall Judge Hippler.
So that's like, you cannot make them allocate. Isn't it allocate? Wouldn't it be allocate? So he shouldn't have gotten no damn offer. He shouldn't have gotten a dang plea deal if he wasn't going to say why he did it and how he did it and all the things. I mean, we pretty much know how, but I would like to know why. I think we'll find out one of these days, maybe, or he may just take that shit to the grave, because he has been quiet. He has been real quiet since 2022. Well, beginning of 2023.
And also Bill Thompson, in defending himself and the decision by the prosecution to accept a plea deal, arguing that whatever Brian Koberger would say anyway, how could we trust what he has to say?
I still want to hear it.
What more could this provide? He has confessed, and while he did not detail things like where the murder weapon was located or any sort of why, which is one of the things that members of the families and also untold numbers of members of the public want the answer to still today. The argument was, how could we trust anything he would say? It would be self-serving. And so there's always going to be those questions. The only person who knows the answers is Brian Koberger, and we're not sure he'll ever speak to these things. He hasn't yet, and maybe he never will. So I think that leaves, if there is a such thing as closure, perhaps that's some of those answers might help families further along. But again, as you know as well as I, it doesn't matter what the case is. You don't always get every answer. And some people are lucky enough to get some of them. In this case, we did, I think, through hard work of police and prosecutors and any sort of details that the defense gave away in certain filings. But, you're just never going to have every answer. And I have to know that as a journalist, too.
We talked about this earlier, but we're now a year out from when this all ended with him being sentenced. He is now off to prison for the rest of his life, several times over. You recently, now that the dust has settled, took a look back on the cost of all of this in actual money terms. Talk to us a little bit about that and what you learned.
Yeah, I've filed dozens of public records requests. I was chasing this number even back in April of 2024 when we were 17 months into it to understand what are the costs of this thing. We could tell it was extraordinary. And at that time, it was about $3.6 million was the number I landed on. And that included things like, the entirety of the investigation, all the overtime hours. Extraordinary. And at that time, it was about $3.6 million was the number I landed on. And that included things like,
I think Lori Vallow's trial and stuff, wasn't it like $5 million?
The entirety of the investigation, all the overtime hours for Moscow Police Department and Idaho State Police troopers, including the hours that they were committing to patrolling the campus on behalf of the University of Idaho.
Well, just think that remember when they had the little setup after they didn't have the cop car there anymore? They had like the cop and he was in like the little trailer thingy. He was getting paid $600 a day to sit in that trailer. Where do you apply for that job?
All the added security, all the protection of the crime scene that they then had to handle, the fencing, the remediation, the 24/7 security, eventually bulldozing the thing. It was all of these costs. It was the money to get Koberger from Pennsylvania to Pullman and then over to Idaho. It was all of the in custody costs for the jailing. It was, prosecution costs, defense costs, as best we could understand them at that time. It was all of that. And that was the number we landed on. So I brought all this together finally. And part of it is that the Idaho Statesman is involved in litigation in order to unseal a sealed case file that includes all of the records about the defense spending. So we remain in litigation over that. We did get awarded that by a resource judge who was.
Did he say they're trying to see how much the defense spent? I'm gonna listen to that again because you better tell us, Ann. You better tell us, because you be looking at a whole different person from the beginning of this trial to the end of this trial. That woman didn't even know how to straighten her hair in the beginning of the trial, and she learned real quick, and her outfits changed real quick, and her purses changed real quick. I think people were talking about her.
That was the number we landed on. So I brought all this together finally. Prosecution costs, defense costs, as best we could understand them at that time. It was all of that. And that was the number we landed on. So I brought all this together finally. And part of it is that the Idaho Statesman is involved in litigation in order to unseal a sealed case file that includes all of the records about the defense spending. So we remain in litigation over that. We did get awarded that by a resource judge who was in charge of that separate case file tied to the criminal case.
Well, you son of a gun, Ann.
To understand all the public taxpayer money that was being used to support his defense team. That actually heads to the Idaho Supreme Court now on appeal from Koberger's defense and will be handled by an appellate public defender separate from Ann Taylor. But the number we are currently understanding to the best of our abilities is more than $8 million was spent on this case. And that includes, again, all those things I listed, and includes $3.1 million spent by Latah County, including all of their expenses and shouldering the brunt of the defense costs at that time. The state of Idaho has switched from a county-based public defense system into a state public defense system now. That's kind of in the weeds, but what it did is it shifted the financial responsibility for Koberger's defense over to the state and this specific office that's funded by the state legislature. All told, the defense now has spent $5.5 million was what was committed to just his case. And you'll probably ask, well, how was that money spent? How much did his attorneys make? The thing is, I can't tell you. I don't know, because it's all buried in this sealed case file that, again, we're going before the Idaho Supreme Court for oral arguments for our paper's attorney to argue on behalf of releasing this, including because the case is fully adjudicated. He has no appeal rights going forward. He has waived all those things. So we should have access to this file. And it was all public taxpayer money. We should have answers about the experts who were hired, how much they were paid, and all the approved expenses, including the attorney's fees charged by his 3 public defenders. So people have a better idea of what these sort of mega cases cost.
Kevin, you have been living this case for over 3 years now. Now that we are in a place where we can kind of look back at it with some perspective, give us, if you can, kind of your final thoughts on this entire journey of this case that you've lived for over 3 years.
I mentioned earlier that at the time there had really never been a quadruple homicide in the state of Idaho. So I want people to sort of understand that as we kind of look back and this really was a seismic impact. It's hard to define fear. It's hard to.
I'm gonna interrupt him because this is weird. Okay, so I just looked up because I like to look things up. I like to use the old Google. The old Google is my friend. Okay, I got like 14 tabs open up here. So why is it? Oh, I'm reading this weird. Oh wait, okay, maybe I'm reading it weird. It says, in every U.S. state and federal court under Rule 11 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, and I could look that up too, a judge cannot accept a standard guilty plea without an allocution. The process, you must state exactly what you did in your own words and admit to all legal elements of the crime. This proves you knowingly and intelligently are giving up your right to a trial. In many states such as Florida, Ohio, California, you may be permitted to enter no contest. See, I'm getting confused now. Because they just said in Idaho, they don't do allocutions. They don't make them do an allocution. Thank you, criminality. Yeah, I guess not. They never had one before this one. Yeah.
Define impact, especially on a place you've never been. Many people, whether that's Moscow or the state of Idaho itself, it shattered the state in a lot of ways. You got to understand, 3 of the last 4 governors for the state had attended that university over the course of many decades. And it is the flagship university. It's a place that had never experienced something so dramatic and traumatic. You know, it was a ghost town in that community for a long time, even up through the arrest, and knowing that Koberger was sitting in a cell in the basement of the courthouse, you know, steps away from a high school right there in Moscow, and even just, you know, a half mile from the campus. It was just so dramatic. And you know, I was actually recently, I read something about how there was an earthquake near Japan a handful of years ago, and they've recently measured it and discovered that Japan was actually pushed. It was just several millimeters, but the physical landmass, the island, was moved. And I present that information because it had that kind of impact on Moscow, and then, you know, you spread out further to the communities that are involved in that area and on the state. And it was just something that has never been experienced. It's something the state and that community will never forget. I think people have largely moved on, and in a way that they have healed to the best of their abilities. There's a monument dedicated now on campus to these 4 victims. And I think the families have gotten a lot of what they've wanted, if not everything. Certainly there are families who still feel they don't have the answers, or didn't have someone standing up for them for the way that they wanted to be represented. But, you know, things have cooled at this point, but it's not an incident that will ever be forgotten in this state, and certainly not by me and any of the people who covered it.
Incredibly well put. Yeah. Thank you so much, my friend. We appreciate it.
It's just that, yeah, it's one of those cases that are going to stick, that is just going to stick with you. You know, there's just certain cases that you cover in true crime and that stick with you. For me, my number one, Madalena Kojikari, that little girl. I think about her almost every day. I pray for her every day too. This will be one of those cases that sticks with me. Kylie Rodney, Quentin Simon, the Delphi case. There's a lot of cases that you cover that are like Nancy Guthrie. Like, where the hell's Nancy Guthrie? We haven't talked about her in a while, but you know, it's because nothing's been coming out on Nancy Guthrie, really. Just, you know, just the bull crap with the creators. I heard the guy with the tattoos was sitting back in front of her house again after he's been arrested like twice, sitting there. So he thought it was a good idea to go back and sit. That's just so weird to me. That is so weird. So is Catherine, are you still in here? Because Catherine was saying that Harsh Reality, apparently in one of his newer videos, he admits that Brian's guilty. I got to see that. I should have asked her which video. Now I'm going to be over there watching videos. I want that on my timeline though. I'm just reading what you guys are saying. U.S. set off an underwater nuke. Oh, well, that's not good. I hate the water. That's why I don't get it. I don't even like it. I like the pool. I'm a pool girl. Because stuff like that. Or like that guy that got swallowed by the whale and then spit back out. Hell no. You ain't gonna catch me in the water. Oh, yeah. Well, I wish he would have addressed the court. That would have been nice. Do I red water? Yeah, I bathe. I do like that water. I just don't like, I'm afraid of the ocean. It's ever since that Titan immersible, whatever it was, imploded, And I looked up what implosion looks like. Like right after that, I was like, oh my God, I never want to go in the ocean again. I don't know. It made me, I love the ocean. I love it. I'll dip my toes in it. I'll dip my toes. Right, Kirst. That's why if I find that, I'm gonna go find that video and don't make me do an old-fashioned review, because I will. I'll do an old-fashioned review and be like, what? Huh? Yeah, there's just a couple of people that there's like two, I think, that I just hit the three dots, the three dots, and it like well, you could just hit not interested, and that was one person I did that with, just because I used to watch them and then it was just like, what the heck happened, Well, thank you, Redwater, for the $10. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, he didn't have any feeling or emotion. Yeah, I respectfully decline. I think that was the longest thing that he said the whole time that he was in a courtroom. It was only anytime he had to speak, if he had to speak, it was yes or no. It wasn't even Your Honor. And you all know that used to make me so mad every time he would say like yes or no, and they never said Your Honor. I feel like that's disrespectful, and maybe he doesn't know that. Maybe that's the autism, like, because they said he had autism. I mean, but so do I, and I know to say Your Honor. But I know there's a type of, autism for everyone. But let me know if anyone wants to come up and chit chat. I'm free. It looks pretty out, actually. And I don't want to really take the girls out, so I don't want to do that. Hey, Mr. Rosebud. We did give them baths today, though. That was Vincent's idea. What? I've been like asking him for like ever. Not like ever. It's probably been a month or so. Because we have a doggy bath here, like where we live. We literally have everything here. It's like the cutest little room. And they have like a blow dryer for the doggies and everything. BK has fans. He has mad support on the internet. On the internet. I've never been around a person, which I never really talk, which is weird because I never really talk true crime with anybody that other than like when I'm on here, which is kind of weird. But yeah, he does have a lot of fans. There was a video done by Chris Whitcomb, the author that wrote the book with us. And I think Cy Ray put some of his stuff in there. I don't know that whole little thing, but he went on to a podcast or like a YouTube channel, and they did an interview, and I was going to play it for us in a couple of days because the comment section is on fire. Like all of these people, like even Jules of All Trades was in there in the comment section, and she said, so like, I guess she quoted him. So I went through the transcript and he never said that. Like miraculous discovery or something like that. And I was like, he never said that. But like, there's a lot of people, but I wonder if the people that see, the thing with me is if you truly think that Brian Koberger is innocent, you guys all need to get together. Like all you creators, and stop creating like lies and conspiracies. If you truly think he's innocent, go and try to get the Innocence Project involved. Go talk to them. Say, hey, do you think you could take on Brian Koberger? I bet they'd say, surely the hell not. But thanks for asking. See you later. Or maybe write to your local legislator, maybe Idaho legislation. Like get your whole thousands of people together, because they have about 2,000 people, I'd say. Get your people together and rally for Brian Koberger. I want to see the picket signs and everything. I want it to be like Karen Reed. Where were all those people actually when Brian went to court and everything and he was pleading guilty? Where were all those? We didn't see anybody show up with a sign. Brian didn't get one sign, and Karen Reed got all those signs made by the same person. Remember, they all look like the same writing. Oh, you're talking about the girl that's the real crazy. Oh, yeah, Barbie Bry. Yeah, Barbie Bry. I think she's young. Is she young? Do you think? I think she's young. Yeah, PJ, me too. I was thinking about like back when she like first kind of came out and she was different, like a lot different. You know what I mean? Like she had like an opinion, but it really always did have like a fact behind it, I felt like, or like something like this, a good thought. And now it's just like, just very mean. I feel like everybody's mean. Everybody's mean. Yeah. I don't think that they really care about the money. I can't believe she bought a K-bar and put it on her shrine for Brian, though. Wow. She has to, and I think she's young. Yeah, she's really young. Because remember, we went through her memes on the channel once because we were in the back. We got back into the Bride girls. She liked me for a minute. I think she found out who I was. And then I went in under a different name. And I think my name's still that on Reddit. I don't even know what my name is on Reddit. Oh my God. What if it's like Bri? I love Bri. It's not that. I didn't do that. No, but I'm surprised Lana wasn't there. She lives super close to me. Not like super, but like close enough. Yeah, Susan, he does. He does shout if you don't give him money. He puts himself in jail. I'm going to start doing that to you guys. I'll put myself in jail. I'm not talking until someone gives me $1,000. Kathy. BK's eyes do look empty. Yeah. I think that it's the way that they are. I think it's just his eyes too. I think they're like hooded or whatever it's called, where they sit back and his brow ridge is more prominent. And I think that's what made his eyebrows appear more prominent. And I think that's why one of the reasons why Dylan kind of focused in on that aspect of him. Plus, I think that like with the drawings in her room, she's really into like that kind of like the eyes and the, eyebrows and stuff. And I think that's probably just what her brain went to. He might have been born with the unibrow. I know that my boyfriend has way bushier eyebrows. Them things are like two little caterpillars right here. I'm like, let me cut them things down a little bit. He's like, nope. But he looks so handsome with them. I don't know. I don't picture him without him. I'll have to look up that Rudolph Hess. Who's that? I feel like I should know who that is. Oh my gosh, I kind of do. Oh my gosh. I knew it as soon as I saw him. I was going to say he looks like he what? As soon as I saw the guy, that's what I thought. Oh my God, look at this guy. Look at those eyebrows. My goodness, look at them eyebrows. Deep, crazy eyes, yeah. Oh, Betsy, I know. Oh my gosh, yeah. I don't know. I don't even can't you think someone else is innocent? You have to go for Chris Watts, the guy that freaking murdered his pregnant wife, buried her, and then put his 2 little baby girls in oil rigs or drums or whatever you want to call them. Like, I personally could never. I mean, I know the evidence. I've seen the case. I didn't cover it, but because I wasn't on the internet at the time, or I wasn't on YouTube. But yeah, no, that's a. See, though, that's a case that I wouldn't mind covering, like if maybe even doing a pre-recorded, doing the whole case, but it's a lot. That might have to be like a 2-parter. Really? You guys replied to none of them. Wow. Yeah, he's a little out there. Of course, time and BK is just plain unattractive. He looks like a Neanderthal. I don't think he's. He's not for me. You know what I mean? Like, but I've seen worse, but I'm not, I mean, not for me. The first time I saw him, I remember thinking, this is the guy. I do remember that. Like, I don't know what I pictured. I didn't picture some big, scary monster or anything like that, but I didn't picture him. You know what I mean? Like, he looked kind of like just very, I don't know, like at first, I don't know, he just didn't say anything. So he didn't really look like anything. I can't even say he looked like anything because he didn't say anything. He was very mute. You know what I mean? Like, very like just looking straight ahead. Which, I mean, if you are a defendant, that's a good idea, right? But if that was me, I'd be on the floor screaming, I didn't do it. I didn't kill 4 people. Burglary, what? I mean, it could be Tracy. I think he did it really. I think he did it too quick. I think he was like, oh, plea deal. There you go. He said yes. Run, grab it, run to him right now. Like, I mean, because it was so fast. I remember it was like within like 4 days. Like, we found out that he was going to plead guilty. And then like 4 days later or 3 days later, he pled guilty. And I'm like, this is so fast. And then we had to wait a little while for the sentencing, I think. Yeah, we waited like a couple weeks. But it just seemed like it went really, really quick when we were covering the case for so long, right? And then like we were all getting ready for trial. First, it was preliminary hearing. That was taken. They didn't do that. And then they put their alibi, in, which was the worst alibi in alibi history. He should have just taken his phone and left it on and left it at home, because Brian ain't getting that many phone calls. But he took his phone because that's what he's used to, and it messed him up. If he wouldn't have taken his phone and left the sheath, and they didn't have him on camera driving by, because I mean, I still think if he was on camera, I still think they would have got the car. I think they would have ran the car through the databases in Washington State and Idaho at the same, at the colleges. And I think that car would have popped up. I think that they would have caught him that way. But if none of that stuff happened, those 3 things, I think he would have got away with it. He was very close, in my opinion, to getting away with it. But he just did some dumb things. And he just did some things that were in human nature that he's used to doing, like taking his phone. He probably thought, what if I can't get home? What if maybe he didn't feel confident about the drive? Because remember, the drive back was like, a long drive. It wasn't like straight across. You know what I mean? So maybe he took his phone thinking that he was going to need his GPS. But he didn't turn it on. I mean, he made it back to Pullman before he turned it on. And then he turns it on right by the college. Why'd you do that? Why didn't you just leave it off so you got home? If you're going to turn it off with a full battery. I can't believe that they even knew that too. Yeah, she does have protection order. She tried to sue like 30 people, I think, or something. The ex wanted custody of the dog. Right, Marcy? Yeah, you do. And you have to put yourself in that position. There's people that fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And I've been through all of those, and I've never been in a house where people have gotten murdered. That would be horrific. But when you go through like traumas, like really bad traumas, like my dad was killed in a car accident, right? So I still did, even though like I knew what happened, it was 11:37 at night. I went to bed. Well, after the cops woke me up, they had to wake me up. I went to bed like just because it was a weird night. But I remember waking up the next morning and I got ready to go have lunch with my friend. Like it was just a freaking other Friday. It would not, like nothing happened. Like literally, like I didn't just lose one of the most important people in my whole life. Like me and my dad we were thick as thieves. We were two peas in a pod. Literally looked just like them. But some people just do that. They just it's like a trauma thing. It's in your head there, but you're just continuing to do life, right? Just to continuing. And my friend actually knew when he pulled up to meet me. We both worked at Red Lobster, and we were going there to eat crab legs because that was our thing. We loved crab legs, and we're like, oh, we're gonna eat some crab legs today. You know what I mean? Like, so when he pulled up, he already knew, but he didn't know that I knew. I didn't know that he knew, and he just gave me a hug, you know. And then I fell apart, but I was still like just doing my things, like, you know, that I don't know, things you have to do. She and JLR should sue each other. Now that's something I'd watch. JLR would do good in a courtroom. I have a feeling he was probably one of the legal jail people whenever people came in, because he wrote out so many freaking 4,000 lawsuits. He's got her beat. 4,000. He was sued the heir. Like, I mean, he really didn't, but he sued like Gandhi, and he sued Kim Kardashian and Donald Trump. He sued Donald Trump, and then he tries to go on tour with them. Like, you know what I mean? Like wearing the red hat and everything. Make America great. But oh man, there are some people in this app. Everyone's crazy. I'm glad criminality's back. I don't know if she's still in the chat, but I'm glad you're back, criminality. Man, oh my gosh, it's been crazy around here. I told her that in her chat earlier, or in her comment section, because it really has been crazy around here. And I'm glad that there's another creator that's back that's factual. It doesn't do the BS, because a lot of people do the BS. I can't do that to y'all. I cannot feed you guys bullshit. I just can't. Like, I physically couldn't do it. You guys would be able to tell on my face as soon as I started lying to y'all or trying to work a conspiracy. I couldn't imagine coming in here and being like, there's tunnels under the house. Like, who started that rumor? He doesn't have to pay Death Valley. He is considered indigent, and I can't say that word very well. So he doesn't make enough money in order to afford an attorney. And so, in the United States and the state that you live in, they have to give you a court appointed attorney. And since he was death penalty case, they had to give him a death penalty qualified attorney. And so she was supposed to, they usually work for like nothing. You know what I mean? Like literally nothing. But she made, I think, was it 2 million? I think. Was it Crime Circus that did the tunnels? Oh my God. That guy gets on my damn nerves with his makeup and his freaking theories and his damn stories. And they're so easy to debunk, but everyone listens to them. And I'm like, do I need a smoke machine and some like diamonds for eyes? Yeah, Redwater was really sweet doing that. Man, Crime Circus. He'd be crazy. And welcome in Vibes True Crime. No, I don't think the JLR ever won any of his. Yeah, we read the Tap Talk ones, and yeah, Drip Drop. Yeah, that's his name. Is he Canadian? Well, there's a lot of good creators on this app that are from Canada, I've noticed. Go Canada. Oh, they do. They believe it. They believe it all. They believe it all. All of the conspiracies. I mean, you'll get a fat group of people too. I'd rather have a small group of people, and I'm telling y'all the truth, than lying to y'all, because I can't keep up with that. I wouldn't remember my life from yesterday to tell you today. I can't do that. Ladybug, did you take a nap? Oh, there she is. She's even welcomed in Death Valley. I didn't see the blue for a while. I was thinking, oh, Ladybug done Fell asleep with Walt. Yeah, people say things, yeah, anything for clout. There's no limit. There is no limit. I was even asking people on like, I have like a thing here, so I looked over here to hold my phone. I like will put my phone here when I do like my TikTok videos, or like my lives or whatever. Because I'll do TikTok lives here and there. So if you ever want to catch me over there, you have to like catch me while I'm live, or the live disappears and it's gone forever. But I asked them, I was like, what do you guys do to keep people in over here? Because I would have like a group of people come in, and then a group of people leave, and a group of people come in, and a group of people leave. And I'm like, do I need to be loud and like crazy? Like, does that do it? Because I'm like, I don't know if I got the energy for that. But it's just kind of funny. But thank you all for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it. What time is it here? It's 7:11 already. Look at that. And the sun's still out. It's going to be out till only 9 o'clock tonight. So the sun is starting to go down a little sooner. I don't like that. Oh gosh, I hate when fall hits. I just get that little seasonal depression. You know what I mean? That little sadness. But I do have some decor to put out. I think fall decor. I don't even want to put it out. We have too much stuff. I need to downsize. I was actually listening to this lady. She does like organizational stuff, and I love that kind of stuff. That's my jam. And she was talking about how much stuff that you have in your home and how much it weighs, like all of your stuff. And like, because I guess moving companies, they base like what they're moving off of how much your stuff weighs. I didn't know that. I thought it was just like based off of a room. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how they do that. But yeah, they said by like the weight, and like they said the most houses weigh like between like 18 and 20. They have 18 to 20,000 pounds worth of stuff. I'm like, I mean, if that doesn't make you want to start getting rid of stuff, I don't know what will. I was like, because she's like, none of the stuff that you like, a lot of the stuff that you have isn't like serving a purpose really. And I'm like, oh, I've probably got a lot of stuff that's doing that. But I've been getting rid of a lot of stuff lately, like old makeup. I got rid of all that. Old skincare, got rid of all that. Because even when it wasn't open, I was like, nope, not even trusting it, because if it's going to go on my face, it could get near my eye. So yeah, your brain is trying to protect you. Yeah, that's what it does too. And I had to tell my mom too, because the cops told me. They didn't tell her. And when that happened, I didn't. Okay, so I found out that my dad was killed because I remember the other case that were the covering with the 16 kids, and they're in the Southeastern Correctional Facility. And I was telling you, I dated a guy that worked there as a corrections officer. He probably still does. I was dating that guy, and hold on one second. Sorry. Somebody just came to the door. Someone was knocking at the door. But sorry about that. Anyway, I was talking about my mom and my dad. But yeah, I tell my mom, and it was literally like I used to wear just like a t-shirt to bed or whatever. And my ex-boyfriend came in through the window, and he woke me up, and he told me, he just blurted it out. Like he was really good friends with my dad too. We had just broken up. And so I just remember I was like, I got to put on my pants. I got to go tell my mom. Like literally, it was like, I don't know. Like your body does do crazy things. So people that are hard on Dylan shouldn't be so hard on her, because literally I was like, I got to get my pants on. Who the hell cares about my damn pants at a time like this? Right? Who would care? But it was me. Put my pants on, and I tried to walk into the room. It didn't work. I fell into the room. But even my, and my mom didn't believe me at first, but it was, your brain will like do things to help you. Even my car accident. I went to get a memory test the other day at the neurologist, and he asked me, I just forgot what I was talking about. Look at that memory test. I took a memory test. I was going to say that. That's what I was saying, but I don't know what I was saying before that. Anyways, see, that's why I need the freaking memory test. I should clip this part because my brain, I'll be talking and my brain just shuts off. I thought you sneezed. Bless you. She said, my husband's always wanting to get rid of stuff. I'm telling you, Ladybug, it feels good. It feels good to get rid of stuff. Like they called it, I've been reading up and I've been really into that Swedish death cleaning where, think about this. And I it's sad to think about this, but you really do have to think about it. Well, I mean, Vincent would have to take care of all this shit, but your kids, right? Your kids would, my car accident. So your kids will inherit all of your stuff. And do you really think that they want like your 15,000 towels that you have, your hand towel collection? No. Get rid of all of them but 3. You know what I mean? Like, and it's called the Swedish death cleaning. And it's pretty much you're cleaning so where your family is only getting the heirlooms and the things that you want them to have. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're not getting your junk. What I was saying about my car accident was my memory was, I don't remember anything from that car accident, but apparently I was talking to the EMT that was sitting there with me. They were trying to extract me. They couldn't get me out. And so he was sitting there with me and he said, I was just talking away. He said, when I got in the ambulance, I asked the EMT for his phone number. That sounds like me. I said, maybe I thought I was going to die, just trying to get one in. But yeah, they said if I was on a 1 from a scale from a 0 to a 15, 0 being dead, like, and then comatose, 5 in a coma or whatever, they were like, you were on a scale to 15, you were sitting upright, you were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was like, I was probably trying to get out of there. They were like, yeah, you probably were. I don't like the hospital. So thanks for reminding me, PJ. Vincent always has to remind me of what I'm talking about. But I took there. So I'm going for like a 3-hour memory test. And then he wanted me to get an MRI done. But I was like, I'm scared because my face has metal in it. So they've always told me no MRIs on your metal because your metal will blow up and you'll blow up. Like your freaking leg will blow up or whatever, wherever the metal's at. So I'm just like, are we sure we want to do that? Because I really want to scan on my brain. They never have scanned it since my accident. They never scanned it after my accident. Can you believe that? I hit my head like 3 different places that night, hard. And they've never done, and I've never felt the same since my accident. I've always felt off. So, obsession, I haven't. Is it good? I'll have to watch it. I'll see. Is it good? Hospitals give me dandruff. Vincent refuses to go to the doctor. He never goes. He went to a specialist just because he had to. Like, you know what I mean? But that was like the only one time in our whole almost 11 years of being together. Well, 10 and a half years. Really? Well, you might get, so it might be like a low grade. I guess you can get like a low grade MRI now, it's called. I don't trust it. I'm scared. Watch it. Okay. I'm scared of it. Like, I don't know. So we're going to do a CAT scan instead, CT scan. Cause it was funny. Cause he's like one of my favorite doctors and his name is Dr. Weber. And he's like, Tanya, he's like, you just had an MRI done on your neck. He's like, that's just as close to your face as your head. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know. So he's like, we'll do a CAT scan for now. And I'm like, okay. I forgot I had that neck one done. So I had a neck x-ray done, a CAT scan done, and they said my neck was too straight. It doesn't have that curve in it that a normal neck has. Mine's just, if I get another test done and it says something, I swear I'm done. I swear I'm done. I'm just like, I'm done. I will not go to the doctor again. I'll be like, no more doctors. Now I'll always be going, but that's just part of my life now. But you know, it's gets me out of the house. I try to stay positive. I really do. But thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I will let you guys go do what you're going to do. I want to do something on my second channel soon because I want to give you guys the memberships that I have over there. Sometimes if I don't go live over there for the month, I don't get to give you guys the memberships. But if I don't go live enough, I won't make any money over on that page, which, I mean, it's not about the money, but it is at the same time. You know what I mean? I want people to watch my videos. So if I do maybe 3 lives over there a month, I'm thinking at least maybe 4 once a week we could do. That could work because YouTube only pays you out if you make a threshold of $100 or more. So if you make like 70, you don't get the $70 for the month. I'm like, give me my money. I think we all have titanium in this group. I should do a titanium live. And we all just say what we've got. How much metal? I wonder who the winner would be. Because we've got a lot of people in here that have metal. Like in their back, oh my God, in their hips and their knees. I can't even imagine. Not yet. Don't do that to me. But let me go ahead and end the poll. 6% said they hated this channel. Who were you? That was probably Foya. But thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys on the next live. Have a great day. Have a great weekend or rest of your weekend. And I'll see you guys all soon. Bye, guys.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight, we gonna let it rain. Tonight, we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no